Okay, well, it's interesting. We're going to begin a sugya tonight. We begin a sugya tonight of a very famous sugya, actually, whether there's a mitzvah to go ahead and separate a cotton from doing an avera. If a cotton is doing an avera, is bezdin mitzvah to go ahead and commit and separate. Now, what this has to do with Yevamot is nothing. But somehow the Gemara is going to go ahead and tie it into our Mishnah. And again, the rule always is, you have a Gemara that's totally strange. At some point in time, they're going to go ahead from the Mishnah to try to go ahead and be poshed at the Gemara, or ask a question, or bring a proof, or what. So we're up to the bottom of Kuf Yud Gimel Amid Beis, Kuf Yud Gimel Amid Beis, and Rabbi Yitzchak Bar Bisna. Rabbi Yitzchak Bar Bisna, Irkesulei Maftiche de Midrasha. He lost the Maftechs to the base Medrash, and it was Shabbos. Anyway, he loses in B'Shus Rabbim. So he's basically finished, right? How are you going to open the base Medrash if you don't have keys? So Aslik made the Rapadis. He came in front of Rapadis for an Eitzah. So Amalei Rapadis went and told him, Amir Aleph Zil, the Bar Toli Vitalia, Vilitalia Hasan. Go ahead, take some kids. Rashi says, be manning the kids, the girls and the boys, little kids, Litali Hasan, to go ahead and play over there in Shabbos. The Mishkaches Lahu, if they'll find the keys, Maisilahu, they'll bring it. So that was Rapadis' Eitzah. Go ahead, they'll bring the kids to the area where you lost it. They'll find the keys and they'll bring it. Says the Gemara, Alma, what do you see from Rapadis' Psak? That cotton, Oichel Nevelis, a cotton that eats Nevelis, Ein Bezdin Mitzuvah Lafrishay. That Bezdin is not commanded to go ahead and separate them. Because again, here it's a din of Haitzah and Shabbos carrying which is a rabbin, and he's saying, in fact, that the Bezdin can go ahead and do this. So again, that's the part of this rule. Cotton Eichel Nevelis, Ein Bezdin Mitzuvah Lafrishay. So now we're going to have a whole Gemara, a whole blot Gemara, either bringing rayas or questions to that concept. Katana. No, Eis of Chinuch. So that's a very interesting point. Heshi brings up, what's the age of these kids? And what about Chinuch? So if you look at the Lashon, it says, a father would not be able to do this because a father has a din of Chinuch. Only Bezdin can do it. That's the diak of the Rishonim. Yeah, guys, Hesh's point. Only Bezdin, but a father in a has a din of a chiyuv of chinuch would not be able to go ahead and set his child up for a situation where he's being over in Issa. Says the Gemara, Lema Messiah, a person should not say to a child, Havali mafteach, bring me the key, Havali chais, and bring me the seal. El, what do? Menicha, you can leave him toilish. If you find him disconnecting things, leave him. Menicha zayrik. If you find him throwing things pashtus and mishus arabim, you leave him. In other words, there's no mitzvah to go ahead and separate it. Right? No mitzvah to separate. Amar sol chayra, you have a raya that there's no mitzvah to be mafish a child from doing an avera. Some Rabbi says abaya toilish, when it speaks about toilish, but otzif she'ein nakov. It could be speaking about a flower pot, guys, that does not have a hole in it. If the flower pot does not have a hole in it, then it's not considered attached to the ground. If it's not considered attached to the ground because it's not getting nutrients from the ground, then we will know that that's not tolish. So therefore, you have no raya, because maybe the tolish we're speaking about over here is not an avera at all. Maybe it's not avera. It's not avera. It's being tolish from an otzitz shein and nakov or zayrik bekarmelis, which is the rabbanon. The Zoyrik, we're familiar with the different Rishuyas and Shabbos, which is Hayochel, which is Rabbim, a Carmelis, an area that where Zrika and a Carmelis is only the Rabbanon. So you have no raya to you side. Again, based on Mitzvah Eichel Nevelis. Nevelis is din deraisa, guys. This is a din deraisa that you're not Mitzvah to go ahead. The Rabbanon seems poshut, you're able to go ahead. No one's as shy about it, the Rabbanon, that you're able to allow him to do it. But even a deraisa, Eichel Nevelis, is eating Nevela, then it would be okay. So again, we have about the Padis is Psakais, that Bezdin is not mitzvah to separate a child from doing an Avera. We wanted to bring a raya from this case, and we weren't successful. Toshma. It's Shabbos, there's a fire, the guy is coming to put out the fire. You don't tell him to put it out. or don't put it out. Don't say anything. Why? There's no dinner shvisa. What? You have to. There's a dinner shvisa on your behema. There's a dinner shvisa on yourself. There's a dinner shvisa. Machlokes beishamai beis hill by kalim. If there's dinner shvisa, by a guy, there's no dinner shvisa. Right? Cotton abol lichtbois. However, a cotton that comes to go ahead and extinguish the fire. You go ahead. What? Put it out. Don't put it out. The shvisa what is on you. So what do you see? That Bezdin is mitzvah, right? That Bezdin is mitzvah. So this is a kasha on Padis, guys. A kasha on Padis. Says the Gemara, you have no raya. You know what we're speaking about over here? Be'oisa al das aviv. Says Rashi 3 lines down from the top. Be'oisa al das aviv. Shehatinoik tzayfe ba'aviv. The tinoik is looking at his father. And he sees his father's happy with it. And his father's standing over him. It's mamish as if he's commanding him to do it, which everyone says you can't do. But the Mavtechas of Yitzchak, he never informed them. It's very interesting, the Gemara, the diak that we're trying to make. Here we're speaking about a child. Clearly, you know what? That it's speaking about a father, meaning if the child did not know what the father wanted, there would not be a mitzvah to a din of being Pirish. It's a kasha on that whole pshat that I told Heshi. Because here we're speaking about a child with a father, right? And you see, it's not a din that's limited to Bezdin. So this is, I don't know about you, but I've been in situations where, like last week, hypothetically, my son-in-law hypothetically went to Eretz Yisrael. And hypothetically, like he takes care of certain things, like making sure the light and the air conditioner, like the refrigerator's on Shabbos mode. And hypothetically, it opened up and the light went on and it started making a lot of noise. And my little grandson went and said, "That's very noisy," and he closed it. Hey, right? This is mamish the sugya, right? Now, according to Rabbi Yochanan, if I would have followed my grandchild into the kitchen and watch, and he knows that I want him to do it. Now, I happen to see my grandson he's a monster, and he didn't like noise. He didn't like the noise, and so it worked out well. But I was saying hypothetically, of course, hypothetically. But in addition, he left the alarm on. Like the connect the front door. So my daughter told him after Shabbos that, "Thank you very much. We were starving inside the house. We couldn't leave, and we couldn't eat a thing. And you're off in Eretz Yisrael." Again, but it's good. But halach l'maisa, guys, a very halach l'maisa. We'll get to the sugya soon. At the end, we'll see the psak. But it's a ma'aseh b'chayom. We all have that. I can't imagine anyone who's been sitting here hasn't had that feeling of Baruch Hashem. The kid doesn't know what's going on, right? And then you have the little smart kid who goes, "Isn't it Shabbos?" No, it's not. That was last week. Anyways, that's the Gemara. So when the instance over there is when the child knows his father is happy, but his father didn't know, you could do it. Gabi Ovid Kechavim fed the Gemara, right? So the Kavase Gabi Ovid Kechavim the Ois al Das Yisrael. So the parallel case would be that the goy is putting out the fire, knowing that the Jew is happy with it. So if it's not okay with the son and the because he knows he's making the father happy, so he's doing so. But the guy also. What? No, but if he's doing it al das to Yisrael himself, right? So that if you're telling me that you could do it normally, but if you know you're noiche bekach, so then the guy is acting like this on the Jew. Says the Gemara. 1 second. So the kavasi gabe the Isa al das Yisrael mishari, it's not permitted. After the Gemara, guess what? The guy, he's doing it on his own das, guys. The guy, even if he knows the Jew is happy with it, why is he doing it? Says Rashi. Why is the guy happy? Right? He knows he's going to get rewarded. So he's doing it what? He's doing it to almanas the kabul pras, right? He's doing it for the purpose of gaining something, and therefore it's permitted. You have the Amir al-Akim is a sugya that's beyond the scope of this share. Trust me. Again, there are such people abuse Amir al-Akim very, very often. They're over Chil Shabbos very often. Amiral Akim is not. You can't tell God to do everything. Can't tell God to do everything. Tashma. Ben Chaver Sharaga Leilach Eitzel Avi. Now, a Chaver, when we speak about a Chaver, it's a person who is a person not from German descent. No, we're speaking about a person who's makbid in Trumas Amaisa, right? He's very makbid. We saw him in Psachim. I feel it for a second. If he dies, you can be simich that before he died, he took off what Trumas Amaisa. This guy it's a Chaver. So he's mamish. He's meticulous in the halachas of Trumas Amaisa. So Ben Chaver, the son of a Chaver. He's accustomed to go to his maternal grandfather, Amaretz, who's an Amaretz. Now, we're not chayish that the grandfather might possibly go ahead and feed him food that had not been separated. What Trumas Amaisa? We're not chayish that he possibly is doing that. However, matzah biyadai peris. If he found in his rishus peris, ain't zakikloi, he doesn't have to take it from him. In other words, if he brings on peris, he doesn't have to take it from him. So l'choy you have a raya that what? Now, what is this called? A person who's chayish and trumas d'maisa, guys that amaretz, we have to separate. It's called demai. It's called demai. It's a whole masechta, right? Masechta called demai. So in this case, you see that what? That even though it's demai, he's not required to go ahead and take it away in zakikloi to remove the questionable produce from his son. Fred the Gemara. So the chayra, you have a raya that what the rapadis that Bezdin is not mitzvah to separate what someone from being over or doing an avera. Rabbi Yochanan b'demai hikilu. B'demai the mekel. Did the mekel by demai? Avi, okay? You got the place. You good? Okay. B'demai hikilu. By demai did the mekel. In general, mekel by demai. It's only chashad. The safek rabbanon. El time with the demaihu. The reason why we're mekel is because it's demai. Havadai, however, let's say you knew for sure it was tevel, boy lasure. Then what? You would have to go ahead what and go ahead and take it off, which is mashma what? Which is mashma. You do stop him. Ivam Rabbi Yochanan ba'oisa al das aviv. In other words, Rabbi Yochanan when he says oisa al das aviv, then it's not good. Mashma would be oisa al das aviv. You wouldn't have to separate them. So you have a stira. In Rabbi Yochanan, guys, that's right. It's a little cheshbon. Says Rabbi Yochanan, the reason why you can let the produce of the Amaretz, the Demai, in the jurisdiction of the child, is because we're makel by Demai. Mashma, if you knew for sure it wasn't Demai, that it was what Tevel, you would take it away from him, which is Mashma. Bezdin is mitzvah to separate a child from doing an avera. Good. Now, who said this? Then Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan also answered before the reason why the cotton is going to put out the fire. You stop him is speaking what is because he was oisal das aviv. Mashma, if he wasn't oisal das aviv, if his father didn't know what he was doing, you won't bring mitzvah for him to put out the fire. So Rabbi Yochanan, what do you hold? Do you hold that you are pirish from an aveira, or do you hold not? That's the kasha on Rabbi Yochanan. Says the Gemara. All the time says the Gemara. Ella Rabbi Yochanan Sfuki Misafkale. Rabbi Yochanan is in doubt. He doesn't know. Since he doesn't know, Koi Hacha by Shabbos Matcha, Koi Hacha Matcha. Over here by Shabbos is Matcha. Over here by Paris is Matcha. In other words, you Matcha the raya either way. Since he doesn't know, he's unsure, guys. Right. So you want to bring a raya from fire that you separate. He's Matcha because he's not sure. You want to bring a raya from the Mai that you're not Matcha, right? He's not sure. So either way, he's playing both sides of the fence. Okay, that's all. Guys, good? Tashma. Ben Chaver, again, this person, Kayin, but any one more thing. He's a Kayin. Sheragalelech Eitzel Avi Imoy Kayin, to go to his maternal grandfather's a Kayin, Amaretz. Now, in Chayshin Shem Yochilenu Truma Tameya. We're not Chayish is going to feed him Truma Tameya. Matzah biyadei Paris, if the child, you find it in the hands of the child Paris, ain't zakik you don't force him. So l'chayr, what do you see? You see that Bezdin is not mitzvah to parish from aveira. And the Gemara b'trum d'Rabbanan, You have no raya. Can sign the truma under the discussion over here is truma derabbanan. Since it's derabbanan in nature, everyone agrees that what you would not be mitzvah to go ahead and separate. This is interesting. This you guys in the Masechta Yevamot. Can you imagine? This is not Yevamot. Think of stuff. Tashma. Tashma. Yoinik. Tinaik. Okay, it's hot cup. Now we know that you can't drink. Dava yotzim menachai is asa. For let's say if it comes out of a pig, it's asa. If it comes out of a camel, it's asa. It comes out of any animal, it's not kosher. It's asa. What about a goyita? Okay. What about a goyita? What? Shut up. Says that I heard that. Yoinik. Yoinik tinaik. The a tina can go and nurse from a goyita, umibehema tameya, and from a pig or a camel. Vein chosheshin be yoinik sheketz, and we're not chayish the isra be yoinik from a sheketz. So something that wide is disgusting. You know, okay, that's one thing. So you would permit a yoinik, a child to nurse from a goyita, or what, or a behemoth tameya. But you can't physically go ahead and feed him nevelos, trefish, shkatzim, ramashim. That you can't do. Everyone holds, again, even if you hold that Bezdin is not sort of the parish, that's if he's doing himself. But for you to feed it, as we're going to see, that you can't do. Now, umi kulon, and from the goyata and from the non-kosher animal, yoinik mehem, bafil b'Shabbos. And even Shabbos, guys, where you get into the is of mafarik. Mafarik is a told of dosh, right? Nonetheless, you'll be able to do in Shabbos. That's by a cotton. Ubegadol, by a gadol. That I saw a shot that someone is 3 or 4 years old. Then aser. Then it would be what? Be aser mitam mafarik. It was a Shabbos tikadin. Abshaloimer. Noig hayinu sheyoinkim behemet tahira biyantif. We're noig to allow a child to go ahead and nurse from behira tahira on yantif. Ketani mia. In chayshishin biyonik sheketz. We said you're not chayshishin that the yonik from a sheketz. So you see that what? That Bezdin is not mitzvah to go ahead and separate a child from doing an avera. So you have a riot to Rapadis. And for the Gemara, Haslam Mishim Sakana. There, it's because what? A sakana. The sakana, if he doesn't not yonik, the child's going to go ahead and die. So therefore, it's a heter, it's a waiver. This would be a waiver in anything. For the Gemara, if it's pikuach nefesh, ihachi gadol nami. We said a gadol you do separate, but a gadol as well should be able to. Says gadol boy umdana. A gadol you need an evaluation whether they quickly after Shabbos or not. Cotton nami boy umdana. A cotton also you should have to have evaluation. Rav Huna Breder Rav Yeshua, you don't need an umdana because you do have an umdana. That's the umdana. Stam tinaik misukin esul chalav. Stam a tinaik is a baby is misukin if it doesn't get the milk. That's the umdana. That if they're not going to drink milk, she'll be in sakana. Therefore, on Shabbos you're able to do it. So the bottom line is vis-a-vis the halacha of we didn't go ahead man and prove anything because why? Because it's a sakana or because it's now just to digress a few minutes to discuss an interesting halacha. What's the halacha about nursing? We mentioned over here in the same breath, we mentioned the human milk of a goyata and of a behemoth tameya. Can a child nurse from what? From a goyish nursemaid?
Was friends with the Roman emperor, his mother.
Rabbi Antoninus.
Yeah.
Yes. It's a medrash. It's a medrash. Okay, very good. Okay, so we'll get to the Bez Hashem. Okay, so the
You get the first slice.
the Bach says, in fact, since we know clearly you can't drink from the milk of a behemoth tameya, and in the same breath you're saying you can't nurse from a goyata, then in fact it's asa. That's the Bach. The Bach says it's asa. Now the Rashba is the one I saw the Bach, right? The Rashba brought down the Bach, and therefore he says it's taka asa. It's taka asa. The Rashba himself says that what you don't find the difference between in humans, you don't find the difference between a nachris and a yisraelis. You don't find the difference between what and your Elis. So what's the reason? What's the reason that it's brought down that you shouldn't nurse? Right? What's the reason brought down? So listen to this in Shulchan Aruch. Listen to this. In the Ramah in Yeridea, Siman Pei Aleph, Sifkat and Zayin. Cholav mitzvahs, the cholav of a guy, cholav Yisrael. It's like a cholav of a yid. It's mamish like, cholav, it's not cholav Yisrael, but it's kosher. Right? Okay, anyway, when we go back to your children. When we come makom, lo yeniko tinok min mitzvahs, a child should not nurse from a guy. Im efshe be Israelis, if you can get a Jewish nursemaid. The cholav avodas kechavim mitamtim alev. The cholav of a goyita is mitamtim alev. It stuffs up the heart. Umoilit tevara. This is Shulchan Aruch, the Ramah, and it creates bad midas. V'chein le'soichel haminis afili Yisraelis devarim musarim. Right, the menekes, the Yisraelis. Let's say she has a heta to eat something that's treif because she's sick or something. You shouldn't nurse. V'hainu im chayla mutala lo yitena av letinak. You shouldn't nurse him then. It's a shach. It's going to be bad for him when he gets old. It's going to affect you. The Shach says, even if the cut and the eichel things that are awesome midrabanan, a father's not mitzvah to separate him. So the Chayr is asking kasha. So why can't he nurse? After all, you're not mitzvah. You come makam yifushu mimenu. Shem not masikle b'ziknusa. It's going to affect him when he gets older. Shem etamtem alev v'goyrim lo teva ra. If you go ahead, and that's the whole need of Moshe Rabbeinu. When Moshe didn't want to go ahead and be yonik from the Goyish nursemaids, because not als kashrus, als timtum leiv. But Heshi brings in as a medrash. Why Antoninus was why was he so special that he was a Rebbe? It's because he switched the nursemaid of Rebbe's mother nursed him. That's what Rebbe's mother. Rebbe's mother nursed him, and since he was nursed by a Jewish woman, it had that impact. I tell you, Maisa Nifla. I'm sitting Shiva. It goes now. My father was Nifla in 1996. It goes back quite a few years. I'm sitting Shiva. A guy, people tell you stupid things. And once in a while, every stupid thing a person tells you, someone tells you something smart. So a guy came and told me a Maisa with the Chida. He heard it from Rabbi Yosef. Said the Chida, an old woman came to the Chida and said, I'm old, I have no children, they're all dead, and I want you to say Kaddish for me. And let me tell you why you say Kaddish for me. He said that when you were born, your mother couldn't nurse you, and she hired me as your nursemaid. And I want to tell you that I was makbid never to eat anything that was not kosher v'yosha before I nursed you. And the Chida said, okay. The woman was Nifta, and the woman comes to the Chida in a dream and says, you could stop saying Kaddish now. She goes, why? She goes, you have no idea in Shemayim what your Kaddish does. He goes, every time you say Kaddish, you get elevated. Right now, I'm happy with the people I'm with. I don't want to go anything more than that.
That's good story.
True or not, but it does fit in the thing about nursing. How the impact is it's amazing. Like Timtum Alev, that you remember that mice in Muncie Loyalina, right? That people they when you eat something that's it's not just that you do an avera, even if you're a shoygeg, even if it's a baby, it's a physical mitzias. It's not a halacha. It's a physical halachically it's kosher. It's not a problem, but there's a physical mitzias of the impact on the varma surim on the nefesh, on the person. It's an amazing thing. So it's fascinating. So the Rashba, so that's what Rashba says. That's pshat in the Gemara. When it says over here, it's medama a goyita to a behemoth tmeya, not als isur wat of kashrus, but als what you can true als to malev. Ramah midas rice will come as a result. Fascinating. Okay, let's just go back and discuss this din of Shabbos. This is the yonik on Shabbos and Yontif. Says the Gemara. We're noig to be yonik for behemoth Torah Yontif. In other words, behemoth Torah. You let the child nurse directly. Hechidami. Idek a sakana. If it's sakana that you're letting the child nurse directly, I feel of Shabbos nami. Be the leka sakana. I feel yom tevasa. So what do you know? It's I'll tell you eichel nefesh. There's many eichel nefesh is not a Torah across the board. So like tzricha the ikat saira. There's a tsar. There's trials in tsar. Kusava mefarik. We said mefarik is kalacha yad. So what's the tsar over here? Is it the animal or the person? How did I learn? Who's in tsar over here? Right? Yeah, the baby's in tsar, and Abishol says mefarik kalacha yad. If you go ahead and do a shinoi, right? So the derech of pirach chalav is usually to nurse, go ahead and milk it with your hands. So if you go ahead and do yanika directly from the dad, that would be a shinoi, okay? And therefore it's not us to the rice, only the rabbanon. And therefore by Yom Tif, where it's asar, it's a lav, we permitted it. Hashem came by Shabbos, right? Shabbos, this is skila, gazru rabbana, gazru. Oh, I skipped the line. If you do it directly, it's klachayad. Shabbos, this is kila gazu rabbanan. Yontif, this is a lav, loy gazu ba rabbanan. That would be the chiluk between the two. Okay, getting back to the sugya of the bezdin mitzvah lahafish a cotton made eating nevelos treifis. It says by the shrotzim, by the shmona shrotzim, it says like soichlum ki sheketzheim, and we it's written as like soichlum, and we read it as like sachilum. In other words, you should not feed them. Like sachilum, you shouldn't feed them. You shouldn't feed. Right? Lahazir hagadolim al katanim, to warn that a gadol should not feel a cotton. My love, the amalahu like soichlu is a mat that you tell him don't eat. In other words, you see the child eating, and you're mitzvah to tell him don't eat. A kasha and a bapadis, you see that bezdin is mitzvah. Guys, in other words, we're learning the pshat. When it says like sachilum, it means that there's a mitzvah for you to go tell the child if you see him eating something that he shouldn't, don't eat it. You're eating an ant, don't eat it. Says no, that's not what it means. It means you shouldn't feed him directly, which we said above already. Of course, everyone holds you can't feed him directly. What does like sachilum mean? Don't feed him directly. But einachinami, if you see them eating, you could let him eat. So therefore, Rapada still holds serve that you bezdin is not mitzvah to separate them. Toshma, kol nefesh michem lesoichel dam. Any nefesh from you should not eat dam. Lahazir gedolim al ketanim. Now the same kasha. My love the army lehu lesoichlu. If you see them eating blood, you say don't. So you see that bezdin is mitzvah. It says malay. The same teretz, you shouldn't go ahead and feed them what yadayim. So emerald kahanim, it says emerald kahanim b'nei aroin v'amata aleihim. That seems to be redundant, guys, right? Emerald kahanim b'nei aroin. Then it says v'amata aleihim. Tashma emerald v'amarta, and this is what is speaking regarding tumah. This is speaking with tumah. V'hazir gedolim al ketanim. This is that if they see a child walking into a cemetery, l'chayra, that the kahanim are mitzvah to go ahead and take him out. Kash on rapadis. You see, you are mitzvah to separate. My love, the amalahu loy sitamu, the do not kantame. The loy l'tamu l'biyadayim. The same teretz. So you have three sources for the same halacha that the gadol's mitzvah on what? The gadol's mitzvah on the cotton. That you shouldn't do it directly. What are the three sources? Again, that's questionable. Right? I don't know. I know the answer to that. Right now, we're going to say that it's speaking about bezdin, but not his child himself. Says the Gemara, three places: shkotzim, dam, and tuma. Guys, three places, right? Shkotzim, dam, and tuma. It says the Gemara b'tzricha. Why do you have to tell me all places that you're mitzvah to make sure that you don't do it b'yadayim? B'tzricha, all three. Tiyash mina shkotzim. If you tell me shkotzim, mishum de isurin b'mashahu. The isur is b'mashahu. What's the issue of shkotzim and mashu? Says Rashi, b'chida'atsha, kitumasan. The guys, the shear usually of tuma is it depends on the object, but by sheretz, it's so chomer. Ka'atsha is like a lentil seed. It's the size that it is when it's born. It's tiny, so that's the size. Now Rashi says the same share of tumah would be the same share of achila. Tosfos disagrees. If you look at the last line in Tosfos, 2 lines up, it says, "Aliyesh the farish the surim b'mashahu the loika al nemala." You'll get malchus on an ant. mishum dahavi birya, because it's a complete birya. V'chein nera l'ri. In other words, clearly, an ant is a very, very small thing. If you eat it, you probably over four lavim if you eat an ant. So you see that it's a very small size. So therefore, I would say over there the mitzvah because of the chumrah, right? Aval dam the ad ikar revius. Revius is lav dafka. L'chayr it's a kazayas. Aval dam the ikar kazayas. I read once you spoke out that there's a Chaim Briska says that the din of achilas dam is din of achila. Since the din of achila, kol achila is bekazayas. So revius is not the right text over here. You can make that because we say revius dam usually is linyan nefesh. That's considered nefesh linyan tama, but or used to revius for kiddush. That's not a din of achila. It's a din of kiddush. The shear, but it's an isra achila. The isra achila's dam of Chaim is machadish that it's a kazayas. Okay, so over here, so I'd say over here the ikka revius emaloi, but dam that you have a larger share, I'd say they're not commanded. V'yashmin and dam mishum dikaris. The reason they're commanded to keep the guy to stop not to feed him is because there's din of karis. Al shrotzim that there's not karis salav emaloi. V'yashmin and hani tarti shrotzim and dam mishum disur shavin b'chol because the isur is equal to all of Klal Yisrael. Aval tuma, which is unique to the kayin emaloi, I would say not mitzvah. Therefore, you tell me you are. V'yashmin and tuma, let's see, you tell you tuma. And certainly the other two, Kahanim shine. I'd say you will machmer by Kahanim mishum the ribu and mitzvahs. They have more mitzvahs to say, right? I will hani, but shkotzim and damim. Alois it's to tell me in each scenario you would be what? You would be chayv. In each scenario you would be chayv. Okay, now what does this have to do with Masechta Yevamos? You're about to find out. Okay, you're about to find out what has to do with Masechta Yevamos. Now we had a very long Mishnah. And I'm going to go through this quickly and I'll point out to you the problem so you won't have to work too hard. Says the Gemara following. Toshma, Shnei Achim, you got two brothers. Echad Pikeach v'Echad Cheresh. One's a Pikeach, one's a Cheresh. Nesuim Shtei Achoyos Pikchos. They're married to what? To two healthy women. Meish Cheresh Bal Pikchos. So now falling in front, right, the Cheresh dies. So falling his wife, who's a Pikeach, with on Kedusha D'Rabbanan, is falling in front of a full zika. What's the din? She goes free. That's easy, right? What about the other way around? Now the rice is falling in front of the Rabbanon. So you have a zika the rice on a Kedusha D'Rabbanan. He has to divorce his own wife because the zika is stronger than what the zika is stronger than the Kedushin, the Rabbanon. The Eishes Achiv Asul Oilam, and she's Asul Oilam. You can't give Chalisa because he's a Cheresh, and she doesn't go free. Because she's Akos Ishtay, so you can't do Yibam. So she's stuck. She's Yivam L'Shuk. Fed the Gemara. Now, why Amma Moitzi As Ishtay? Why does the Cheresh have to go ahead and be Moitzi his wife? Beget Piasav Gabe Kod Noichel Nevelasu. Guys, outside, you have a regular normal woman married to a Cheresh. You said she has to leave because the zika of the full-fledged brother is too powerful. Why you might speak? Why can't they live together? It's asa, right? The cheresh is no different than a cotton. He's not a bandas. So if you tell me the halacha is like Rav Padas, that by bezdin it's not mitzvah to be mafresh, a cotton by eating the vela, so you're not mitzvah to go ahead and separate the guy from his wife, let them live together. What's the answer? That's good by him. Who's he married to? A regular person. Because the Issa Dida, therefore you separate. Very geschmack. Next. Says the Gemara. So what's the difference? It says Gemara. Mishum Isura Dida. Because of what? Harisa. Next case. We're going to have three cases of this.
Well, why don't you say that it started out as good? I mean, it ended up bad. You know, when he married her, it was fine.
That's the right. It's Kedusha D'Rabbanan.
Yeah, it was Kedusha D'Rabbanan.
So Kedusha D'Rabbanan cannot go ahead what, and the zika is more powerful. So this is like the question. We're going back to the Mishnah, which we discussed clearly.
Yeah.
Again, it's really not a Yevamistic din, but I will take my time to explain it to you. You have a full-fledged Kedushin D'Rabbanan over here. The Cheresh is nothing. You have a full-fledged Kedushin and the zika D'Raisa of Yibum. That is stronger. Therefore, that breaks the get. Okay, says the Gemara. Toshma, Shnei Achim Pikchin. Now the case before there was a Cheresh. Now, guys, the two Achim are healthy. The student Shtei Achoyes, they're married to two sisters. Achas Pikachas v'Achas Chereshes. Meis Pikech Bal Chareshes, Mayasa Pikech Bal Chors, Teisim Shemachasish. That's easy. Meis Pikech is Bal Pikach, Mayasa Pikech Bal Chareshes, Moitzi Asish Te Beget. He goes ahead, what? She goes out beget, and Ve'esh Sacha Bechalitza. Furthermore, my Moitzi Asish Te Beget, Teisim Gabei. She's a Chareshes, guys. So it's you know, so who's the Yisrael now? Says the Gemara, because of his Issa. So therefore, that's why Moitzi beget. Now we're going to give the case where what? Where when the Cheresh ends up with the Chereshes, and therefore, why can't they stay together? Okay, guys, you hear? First case was his Arissa, the second case was his Issa, and that's why she's Mitzvah and he's Mitzvah, and therefore you can't keep them together. The last case, they're going to both be off the hook. Amar Rav Toshma, Shnei Achim Echad Cheresh V'Echad Pikeach, Nasum Shnei Achoyes Achad Pikachas V'Echad Chereshes. In other words, the Cheresh is married to the Cheresh, and the Pikeach is married to the Pikeach. Meis Cheresh Bal Chereshes Mayasa Pikeach Bal Chereshes Teitzim Shemachas Ishtoi. Meis Pikeach Bal Pikachas Mayasa Cheresh Bal Chereshes Moitzi Ishtoi Beget V'Eishes Achiv Asur Loilam because of the Zika. Furthermore, Hacha Dalavi Surah Di Dayaka because she's a Chereshes. Dalavi Surah Di Dayaka and he's a Cheresh. The Ketani Moitzi Ishtoi Beget is test the divorce. Why? If like a Padash not Mitzvah, and you can't say Isli Day Isli Da because it's the Rabbanim both. Says the Gemara, Amar Shmaya, Gezeir Shemet Hatar Yevam Lishuk. What are they going to see? They're not going to. People aren't going to go ahead and know the Chachma. Why do they? They're not going to know the Chachma over here that the Kedushin Bad really isn't Israel over here and let them stay together. They're going to they're going to say they could stay together, right? No problem. And as a result, they're going to. And she is going to go. They're going to matter an achasisha to the shuk when she really is not permitted to the shuk. So to avoid that, yeah, and I'm saying that's. I'm saying that because you're worried about. There's no way she's really getting out. That's not the kasha. She can't get out. She can't get out. Who's gonna? You have the zika deraisa. You have the chalitza you can't do. She can't be free. But what are you worried about? You're worried about that people are going to not realize that the reason why they're staying together is because of the fact that they're going to realize that. Because even without this Gezeirah Baruch, she's not free. She's stuck anyway. There's no kasha about that. Okay, in other words, they'll say that like an achas isha usually is pata, guys. That's one more time. If it's a regular achas isha, what's the din? She's gone. The other one's gone to the shuk over here, but it's not. But you'll say she is, but she's really not because they won't realize it's only that. So we're worried about that she'll go to the shuk when she's not free because of the zika of the raisa. Therefore, hajulach cheresh. Okay, last part. Not no second to last. Guys, we saw a parak called Isha Rabbah. We saw an unbelievable chiddush. What did we see? That even though Ein Dava Shebe Erva Pachas Mishnayim, we said if a woman's husband goes overseas and an aide comes back and says that he's dead, that she's able to remarry based upon the aidus of what? Of an aid echad. Because why? Because well, let's go through it. Because Mishum Iguna Chil Barabana. We don't want to be an Iguna. We don't want to be an Iguna. And again, what happens if she remarries and the husband shows up? She is asa to the first husband, as kanas. She was never married to the second husband. You need to get from the second husband. Any child born from the second husband is a mamzer. Any child born afterwards from the first husband is a mamzer the rabbanon. In other words, no ksuba. This girl is basically, yes, she's in a bad way. So there's a very, 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 there's a very strong incentive. Because of this, we say, what's a woman going to do before she remarries? Daiku mitzvah. She's going to go ahead and check it out. She's go ahead and check it out. That concept stays throughout, and it's the biggest heter of the Torah. That it's amazing, crazy heter that the loudest woman. We're going to extend the belief. Not only we said is an a belief, she's believed. She's believed, and this was discussion in this Mishnah. Says the Mishnah, Ha'isha shaholchihi ubayla medina sayam. The woman, she goes, and her husband goes overseas, and now shalom beino leveina. There's shalom between them. That's a key. That there's shalom bias between them. There's not a katata. There's not a fight between them. There's shalom bias between them. There's shalom ba'olam, and there's peace in the world. The Gemara is going to say this is not that important, but it's for the seifa. Uba ba'omra, and she comes and says, Meis Baili, my husband died. What's the halacha? Tina says she can remarry. She's believed she can be married. Why is she believed? Like we said, Mishumiguni kil barabonon, and Eishadako mitzvah, and because the whole thing is going to come down upon her if she's not telling the truth. Meis Baili, my husband died. I have no children, and I have a brother-in-law. Tisyabe. So she can remarry. Not only can she remarry, she also can fall even top. Now, Shalom beino leveina, if there's peace between them, however, u'melchama ba'olam, there's war in the world. Kitata beino leveina, there's fighting between them. There's shalom ba'olam, and there's peace in the world. Ubasa va'amra, and now she says, again, one or two factors, guys. Either that there's shalom and war, or no war but shalom. No war, no shalom. Yeah, the wars between them. Meis Baili, ain't in their menace. Then she's not believed. You hear this? She's not believed. Not believed. Not believed. Now, why by fighting between them? She'd be willing, perhaps, to go through all the surim. It'd be worth it to get out of this marriage. I don't care what happens. And if there's war in the world, this doesn't make a lot of sense, guys. War in the world is the reason she should be believed. If there's war in the world, there's more chances that he's dead. So that would appear to be contradictory, right? In other words, she's believed to say her husband's dead. So why, if there's war in the world, would she not be believed? Right? It's kind of funny, yeah. It should, if anything, it should substantiate her claim. It's right if the husband's dead. Okay, we'll see. She's not believed. Elam Kain Basa, Boicha crying, Ubagda crying, clothing ripped. You need a little more drama. So Amaloi, Achazu, Achazu, it doesn't make a difference whether what, if it's ripped or not ripped, anyone can go ahead and the Gevinim did all of this. Okay, let's see the Gemara. Shalom beino leveina. What's the reason we learned Tana? What's the reason we learned Shalom beino leveina? Because we want to learn in the Seifa, Kitata b'nei leveina, this fighting between them. Tana Shalom ba'olam. In other words, you don't need, guys, look at me. If you learn the Mishnah literally, you'd say, in order for her to be believed, you need to go ahead and establish this shalom between them and establish that there's peace in the world. Says the Gemara, no, you don't have to establish that. The only reason we learn those two things is punt farket, that you know for sure that there's no fighting. In other words, if there's no fighting, you don't have to establish that they don't fight. You just have to know that they fight. Stam, if they're not fighting, you don't have to say, well, you could be parav. You don't have to be the other extreme. And if you don't have to establish there's no war in the world. If there's no war in the world, if there's a war, there's a war. But not that you need the opposite to create the mitzias of her being believed. She's believed anyway. So that's what the Gemara is saying. Amar Rav, my time of the Mulchama. What's the reason Mulchama? Now, in other words, Rav is asking Akasha, guys. Pashtus Mulchama is a reason that she should be believed. Listens to this Gemara. It's unbelievable. Chazal. Mishum the Amra bididami. She's going to go ahead and say, not as an unequivocal fact that her husband died, she's going to go ahead and say it bididami, perhaps he died. Salkedaitach b'chol hani the ikdol hupalit. 1 second. There's a war. Everyone is dead. He's going to be alive. She gets news that there was a battle and the whole troops were obliterated. Why should my husband walk away from that? Then she'll say, "Why? Obviously, what? He must have been died." So that's not what she knows. That's what she thinks. That's a perhaps. Im tim tzaloymar kim the shalom beino leveina natra ad chazia. And if you're going to say that since there's shalom between them, she's going to wait until she sees what happens to them. In other words, she won't base it upon some report back from the front that everyone was obliterated. She'd have to see it. Zimnin, she'll see the machle begira. He was hit with a gira, I think is a club, or with a spear. In other words, he's shot. She saw her husband shot. And what does she think?
Gone.
He's finished. He's bleeding out. He's finished, right? He's finished, right? And therefore, the savra vadai mace. However, the iked of it smatari. There are those who make a smatari. Rashi says smatari seems to be some type of poultice, some type of bandage. The Rashbam, I have on my Muksavim over here. Rashbam in Baba Basra, Ayin Dalet says it's a grass that they had. You'd put it on the wound, and it would be like stitches. It would go ahead and close up the wound. That would be a good class to know. You do have something that you put on? No, we had to insert. No, yes. There's a powder that you're right away. Yeah. So. You're serious and you're speaking to him. No, in other words, he's taking for granted that you're bleeding out, right? He's taking for granted that you're bleeding out, and in that. So in other words, that's the svar of Mulchama. Even though in other words, this Mulchama may create a hechet timsa of the dummy. It may create a hechet timsa of perhaps, and therefore, if that hechet timsa exists, the chaya savra of lemema, Rabbi held to say Ravan eno k'Mulchama, that if there's hunger in the world, it's not like Mulchama, and therefore it won't be the dummy. The lay omra be the dummy. Hada amar Rabbi says no. Ravan Hari who k'Mulchama. Marvin is mamish like Mulchama. Why? Listen to this. The Asus that came the Rav. There was this woman who came from the Rav. Amalei, she said, Bali Mace, my husband died the Rav. Amalei, shapa about it to the Shezvach Nafsha. It's a good thing you saved yourself. Who ported in the fifis the Shavkale, the little amount of flour that you left him, Havichaya? In other words, he went a little probby, a little check. He said, oh wow, you saved yourself. It's a good thing. You left your husband that little flour. You think he could live with surviving a little flour? So Amalei, she told Rav, Mar Nami Yoda Gavna Lechaya. Mar also knows that you can't live. In other words, that's exactly what happened. So that's been the dummy, guys. So that's been the dummy. Hadam Rav, no. Ravan Guriya Mulchama. Rav is worse than Mulchama b'the dummy. Why? The Ila Mulchama Kiyama Meis Baili b'Mulchama Hudalei Mehimna. She's not believed. Hameis Al Mitasei Mehimna. But if he said he died in his bed, she would be believed. V'ilu Gabi Ravan Ada Amrit Meis V'Kavrasei. We have to dead and buried. Rashi says, Shema Barach Venitzel. By Muhammad is a svara saying maybe he'll run away and be saved. Al V'Rav, he's Savura Ech Yechya. She says, how is he going to live? So yeah, the only way to be believed is to see him dead and buried.